Okay, so items 3 and 4 include a presentation from our homeless strategy officer on the summit and its goals, and then we are posted for action with resolutions and backup to recommend that we update our housing plan, which is otherwise known as our housing blueprint, with those goals. So we'll take the presentation from the staff first and then discuss and see if we want to forward a recommendation to the dais.
Good afternoon, folks. I am pleased to be here today, and I think before I start the presentation, I just want to acknowledge something that is on many of our minds, which is that Proposition B passed over the weekend, and that we will be looking at implementation on the 11th, or the law goes into effect on the 11th. I think, pertinent to this committee is simply that it underscores the urgency of getting more units available for folks experiencing homelessness, as well as rental supports. So that, I think, certainly relates to the presentation today. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So something that we started certainly before the summit and have done previously in the history of the city and its other PSH goals, which I believe were 2014 and 2017 or 18, is that we really start to track the pipeline carefully. And these are developed units. These are not the scattered site units. We do currently have about 50 scattered site PSH units in process of being implemented. And also, just to clarify, this is the pipeline of PSH specific units. There are other units that AHFC helps finance that are dedicated to referrals through the COC that might end up being PSH referrals, but can also be rapid rehousing. So these are dedicated PSH units. So we look at this, and we currently have 191 units in the pipeline. Aspero at Rutland, as you know, is Caritas at Austin's project in partnership with the Vecino Group. They have 51 dedicated PSH units, but in addition to that, they have another 49 or maybe 50 units that are dedicated for general use by the COC. So that could also, those units could also be utilized for PSH. I want to point out, because it is a little bit confusing, that the capital commitment shown here for Aspero at Rutland is prorated for the PSH units only. It is overall a much more substantial investment of, I believe, $8.5 million. AHFC has also made this the first project of their quite innovative, I will say, local housing voucher program, in which we are taking local funds and mirroring, in some ways, the way that public housing authorities provide ongoing rental supports to affordable housing projects. HACA does indeed have some vouchers that will be dedicated to this building. And so in total, we will have 101 units of the 171 in the total project. Will have ongoing housing choice voucher rental supports that will allow tenants to pay only 30% of their income, whatever that is. APH does anticipate bringing forth a funding action for at least part of the services in this building around PSH. This is new construction, so right now we anticipate earliest occupancy in probably September of 2022. The next two projects on this list are ones you are familiar with, insofar as they are part of the city's hotel conversion strategy for a total of 140 units. Those, of course, have not yet been acquired, but are in the pipeline insofar as we have committed funds to them and will be, they are in the due diligence process. The other piece I want to note here is that Internally in our conversations, we know that there are other projects out there, other developers that are interested in doing permanent supportive housing projects. But because, of course, there is a fair amount of uncertainty in the development process, we are not listing those here. But part of the purpose of the pipeline working group, which includes representation from my division, representation from AHFC, and representation from the public housing authorities, is that when developers come forward with a potential project idea, one of our roles is to troubleshoot with them, to identify resources, and in some cases, to do some, if you will, informal matchmaking with potential service providers, property managers, et cetera, when there is a need to bring additional expertise to the table. So I just want to mention that as I think one of the real values of having a focused working group on pipeline, which isn't necessarily immediately evident in the numbers that you see here, but will be evident as we bring more projects explicitly into the pipeline with some committed funding. So let's go to the next slide. So in terms of PSH pipeline, of course, the Summit to Address Unsheltered Homelessness set a goal of rehousing 3,000 people over the course of 3 years, starting about 2.5 weeks ago. And so through April of 2024. In addition, part of those 3,000 units, we have targeted to be capital development. So whether that's new construction, acquisition, and rehab properties, et cetera, but 1,000 units that are explicitly dedicated to PSH, typically with some substantial city subsidy in them, as well as leverage funds from the state and other sources. So in terms of thinking about how we might ramp up to those 1,000 units, we know that we need to accelerate our development production. We are not there right now in terms of what we have been putting on the ground annually, although there certainly has been progress. So my hope is that by the end of this calendar year, we would be looking at somewhere around 160 units operational. And then really in calendar years 2022 and 23, we begin to ramp up to 300 plus units per year to hit what I will want to be clear is a pretty ambitious goal of that 1,000 units by April of 2024. And so part of the reason that I think this is important is that as we think about the resources that the city can provide for capital projects, we need to be taking that into account in terms of the resources at AHFC's disposal to support these projects along with their existing pipeline of important affordable housing deals generally. Let's go to the next slide. So since this is the Housing and Planning Committee, I wanted to speak to the summit goals explicitly around capital. Because, over half of the $515 million estimated cost of to reach the summit goals is capital associated largely with those 1,000 PSH units, although there is a bit of money in this modeling for some subsidy of COC units that might be utilized for rapid rehousing placement, et cetera. So I think the positive news is that we think that about $150 million of that $275 million is either committed or there is reasonable anticipation that we can secure those funds without too much trouble. So we already have $32.5 million in general obligation bonds committed and or at least planned. And so that consists of roughly $30 million that has been targeted to hotel conversion, plus the 2.5 that is a hard commitment to a Sparrow at Rutland. in the American Rescue Plan Act, outside of the local fiscal assistance dollars that council will be contemplating uses for in the coming weeks, is a direct allocation to AHFC of $11.4 million, which is, we are calling it home dollars. They're calculated on the home formula. There's some flexibility there in terms of utilizing that for services, but it is framed, and we right now think the likely use is for capital. So 11.4 million. I have about $66 million in low-income housing tax credit equity here. And this assumes not that we are going to capture very many 9% tax credit deals, which provide a deeper subsidy, and we hope we will be able to secure, but that a substantial portion of our pipeline units do apply for 4% tax credits, which can provide, just as a rule of thumb, 30% or so of the capital for a particular deal. Also at the state, Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, there is what is called the Multifamily Direct Loan Program. And that program provides a wide variety of financing for affordable housing projects in Texas, but it does have a set aside of essentially forgivable loans for supportive housing. So most deals would be eligible for a $3 million request from that fund. And importantly, as of this year, that fund is expected to double in size. So we expect that we could probably increase our capture from that fund. The good news is that it does not rely on annual appropriations, but rather is funded out of some of the profit, if you will, from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And then the final source, Federal Home Loan Bank, is a grant program really that is through the Federal Home Loan Bank, excuse me, but also through their proceeds. So that leaves us with a $125 million capital gap. And, we certainly hope that this is a place that philanthropy could come in and help us fill the gap. We could conceivably look at some expanded access to general obligation bonds. That, of course, would be at council's discretion to put it to election. We could look at some of the local fiscal assistance dollars, assuming that as we get additional guidance, we continue to believe it could be used for capital. And then there are some other federal dollars that flow through the community. So this is very high level, but I wanted to give you a sense of what our gap is, but also what is making up that sort of committed and anticipated column, which is not all of it is 100% sure, but these are revenue streams that have been very consistent over time. Next slide, please. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
If y'all will take that down, and then we can pull it back up if need be. Committee members, any questions of Ms. Gray? Councilmember Kitchen.
Just a quick question, and thanks for providing the backup on the dollars. Does that include the dollars that we had designated for purchase as part of the bond package? Was that 2018 bond? Yeah. Does that include?
It explicitly includes the dollars that were generally targeted toward the hotel conversion.
Okay.
But that sits within the overall acquisition allocation, if I am not mistaken, and I don't see any distress on Rosie's face, so I think that's right.
No, you're correct.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, you were correct that we had allocated about 30 million of the 100 million of land acquisition for this particular initiative, and that was reflected on the summary chart of funding sources that Diana had.
Okay, I know this is a conversation for a different day, but I will want to understand the extent to any discretion for us between the 35 million and the 100 million. If there are, it may be all committed, I don't know. but,
It is close to all committed at this point. We've got the funding set aside for the 30 million, and then there is a modest amount that's coming for next fiscal year. And then I believe that is the last of the land acquisition bucket of funds as they were allocated from the 250 million general obligation bond.
okay, just last question. How much of that is coming next year?
I know Mandy is on the call. Mandy, do you want to come off mute? And
I am up. Can you all hear me?
yes,
Just order of magnitude. I don't need exact.
We have an additional $20 million that will be appropriated next fiscal year. So thus far, 80 million out of the 100 million for land acquisition has been appropriated. And Rosie is correct. We are at about 75 million out of that 80 million committed thus far. So we are very, very close, tight on our budget.
Thank you.
Mhm. You're welcome.
Councilmember Ellis.
Thank you. Are any of these numbers considering what might just be in our normal general fund fiscal year budgets? I know that we had some appropriated between 19 and 20 and are likely to have some from 2021 and 21 and 22. Can you tell me if some of those are being considered here or what the magnitude of those would be?
So I'm not sure that I understood the question, so please stop me if I'm going down the wrong path. So these numbers are, of course, it's capital only, and so it does not represent, for the most part, general fund dollars, because the dollars that we had allocated for acquisition, construction, or rehab of properties was all coming from the general obligation bond, I believe, and so. I will say that the commitment to a sparrow at Rutland, I believe, appears in this year's fiscal budget. Mandy will stop me if that's not correct. But again, it is capital and it is coming out of the general obligation bond bucket rather than general fund.
Okay, and is that a normal, sorry, I heard Mandy jump in.
I'm so sorry. That is correct. That 8.5 million for a sparrow at Rutland is coming out of this year's appropriation for general obligation bonds. The 2.5 million is a subset of that 8.5 million. If that illuminates and doesn't confuse. But that is all represented in this year's general obligation bond dollars.
Okay, and so those are obligation bonds. Is there any building structures we purchase with general fund revenue?
Not contemplated in this forecast. And it is
not typically.
right, exactly.
There's as you recall, we acquired Roadway Inn using
Community development block grant.
Yeah, a bringing together of community development block grant funds. We have Housing Trust Fund that is also available that could be available for land or for facilities, but it is not currently envisioned in the programming of that.
Okay,
and
so
it's Homestead Preservation District A TERS funds are also another source of funding, but not envisioned unless a property came up in this particular geographical area that would be for permanent supportive housing.
okay, so it sounds like very generally, we don't use general fund revenue for buildings and structures. We use obligation bonds or CBDG grants, but services could come out of general fund revenues. Is that how you try to break it down?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
because those are ongoing on an annual basis. We typically utilize general fund for that.
Okay, that makes sense. I appreciate that. And I do like the slide that you have kind of identifying the capital commitment it would take to achieve our summit goals. The portion that says 11.4 million for the affordable housing AHFC specific rescue plan dollars, is that something that is spelled out in the ARP guidance? Yes. I don't know if we have like all of the guidance has been fully approved yet, and so I want to make sure I'm understanding the process in that. But is that designated specifically for things like what our AHFC agendas would cover?
Yeah, it's money that is coming to participating jurisdictions like the city of Austin using the home allocation formula that is specifically called out to be used for homelessness. It could be used for services. It could be used for things like emergency or like tenant-based rental assistance, but it also specifically lays out activities like capital acquisition. And that's what, in our preliminary conversations, that's what we anticipate spending that on.
Right. And just as a clarification, council member, we are still waiting on substantial guidance, I think, around the act, but this source of funding was actually defined in the act itself as a separate funding stream that would come to local governments that is not, flexible in the same way the local fiscal assistance dollars are.
Okay, that's helpful. And I'm trying to find the right words. I just want to make sure I understand. But I think some of the allotments between cities and counties went in line with what the federal government already knows that we as cities and counties need. Is that correct? Maybe you can put better words to it, but I remember that idea of them identifying that need by our historic numbers and our grants and things we've applied for in the past.
So yes. And I think this speaks to what Rosie said about the home allocation formula, which for most humans, means nothing. But the home housing opportunity, something for everyone. Help me, Rosie. Anyway, so this is an annual allocation that cities and counties get if they are participating jurisdictions. And so that is sort of that calculation, presumably that represents need in the community. And so that is the way that they calculated this particular source of funds. I will say that part of the reason we are seeing this year the county's dollars in local fiscal assistance outpace what the city is getting is that they did not use that sort of typical formula around we are going to look at what the city gets and then we're going to define what the county is outside of the city, right? So it was additive rather than sort of looking at those two separately.
Mm-hmm. That's helpful. I appreciate you running through that again with me.
Of course.
Mayor.
I just quickly add, I think those are good questions. Professor Alice, the Ralph Carbushian, who's the lobbyist or advisor we have at the federal level, has looked at the kinds of things that we've talked about for the ARP and has expressed his opinion that they're going to be consistent with what comes out eventually from the Treasury Department.
Any other questions from committee members? I have a couple questions, but first off, really want to thank you, Ms. Gray, and everybody that participated in working on the summit. I appreciate that we have had an adopted plan around addressing homelessness, but really laying out a 3-year stretch and a really significant and bold investment in 3 years and a really drastic reduction in unsheltered homelessness this year, and then furthermore in the next year. And the next year, I think, is what we've heard from a lot of folks in the community that they really want to see. So I appreciate you laying that out here. My two quick questions are, one, the Sparrow at Rutland, you had listed 51 PSH units, but we understand that Caritas is planning on housing over 150 people, pulling 150 people off the street or more into that building. And so, but I understand that a PSH unit might be different than just housing someone who's experiencing homelessness. So as we count towards our 3,000 goal, what are we counting and what are we not? When you count towards 3,000, are you counting all 150, 160 units at a Sparrow at Rutland, or are you only counting the 50 lowest barrier, heaviest served?
So in order to avoid duplication in counting, the way that we will expect to count toward the 3,000 goal is placements into housing, right, with resources. So as you say, Caritas is, serves this population generally. 101 of the 171 units, they've committed to taking referrals through the coordinated entry system. And of those, they're dedicating at least 51 to sort of pure PSH. These are really for those individuals. And so we expect that those 101, I mean, those are huge resources because we know where the units are and they've got the rental subsidy already attached. We will need to bring the services to it. But yes, that is where and how at least 101 people would be resourced toward our 1,000 unit goal. And then of the remaining 71 units, decent chance that Caritas would place more folks in those units so they are available as housing stock for that purpose.
Got it. That's really helpful. So as we count towards our goal of 3,000 more people, what we're doing is counting how many people we pull off the streets and into housing. We're not just counting doors. And so if a unit is for a family of 3 or of 2, we're counting those folks. We're not just counting units. And so if it winds up being 140 of those units are pulling folks out of tents and into housing, then that's 140 towards our goal. Sorry, Ms. Gray, I think you're muted.
The piece about the pipeline that's so important is that, of course, there's a lag. It takes a while to do the development. And so, when we commit capital, in our minds, we know we're committing PSH, but that PSH is not necessarily going to hit the ground for a while, depending on whether it's acquisition, rehab, or new construction. But because we know we desperately need the housing stock that is low barrier enough for people to move into, part of sort of the policy and strategy work of the city has to be nurturing, and building that pipeline going forward. So we know as we get to the place where these units are ready, we can place folks into them, and we've got the resources in these cases for the rental subsidies. We feel really confident about those future placements, but to your point, we don't count them typically until people are in them.
Councilmember Kitchen, you have a question on this point? Go ahead.
Oh, if you finished your line of questions?
I had one other question, but it's a bit separate. So if it's close to this, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I just was going to ask a follow-up question on the how we're counting towards the 3,000. So just to make sure I heard right. So we count towards the 3,000 based on, did I hear you right, the individuals who are rehoused, basically, whether that's a permanent supportive housing or a rapid rehousing or something else that fits that person's needs. It's the person being rehoused. Is that right?
So not quite. And let me I think elucidate. So
okay. Mm-hmm.
We anticipate committed to rehousing 3,000 people with pretty intensive housing interventions, which will typically be rapid rehousing or PSH. Because we know that there are folks that fall into homelessness, every year, who really need not as much, not as long, not as intensive of supports, maybe need a month of rental supports, or maybe need money to reunite with family, etc. Those folks we expect to be rehoused, but we want to hold ourselves accountable to creating the capacity for the deeper need. So we, and these are, an emerging model, but during our analysis process, our consultant said, we're holding ourselves accountable to the 3,000, robust intervention, rehousing events, if you will, but there's probably 10,000 folks rehoused overall over the course of that time.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. I wasn't sure what all individuals fall within the 3,000. So it's rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing, but it's those folks who require that more intensive effort as opposed to, someone who very quickly gets a first and last month rent or something like that. Okay, then the second and last question there is, I assume that we are counting the HEAL initiative as we proceed towards the initial 4 locations would counting those first 4 targets in the first level targets, right? I forget. I mean, you've got several targets in there. I forget which. I'm not asking which one. I'm just saying that the first couple of target dates that we have there, that the folks that are rehoused through the HEAL initiative will count towards them, right?
Yes, and we have currently some funding coming into place through ESG CV dollars, so it's essentially the COVID dollars for folks who have not yet been placed, largely folks in the pro lodges who were unsheltered before they came in, and so that will contribute to our initial goals because I think probably to your next question, by June 30th, we probably won't have everybody housed through the process.
Okay. So that's going to be those early out is a combination of the HEAL initiative and also the pro lodges and the work there, which has been ongoing. So
that's accurate. And just to your, I think that this is what you meant, but let me be clear. The dollars that we are showing in that breakdown of committed, anticipated, and gap are only capital. So HEAL dollars, since that's
right. Right. Yeah, I understand that those dollars are only the capital side. There's other dollars that are operational, but counting the number of people is a little bit different thing. So, okay. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Renteria.
Yes. Are y'all also counting the community first village? Because they seem to be in a process of really expanding, and their goal is almost 2,000 people.
So their goal is 1,400 units over the next 10 years. And Community First is wonderful and unique and also a little idiosyncratic in our world, insofar as they certainly serve the chronically homeless. They do it very well, but it is not typically permanent supportive housing by the definition of the intensity of services and the sort of guarantee that people will only spend 30% of their income on their rent. So they have very modest rent, which is not, and because some of the units do not have full bathrooms or kitchens or running water, in the kitchens, that those typically wouldn't meet HUD quality standards. So that is not falling into this pipeline. But I will tell you that as we think about that 3,000 unit goal overall, 3,000 placements, we know that some folks will absolutely go into the production that comes through Community First Village, both existing and new sites. And I think that one of the questions that we'll have as Alan and Amber Fogarty move forward in this process is kind of what they think the timeline looks like. How many of those units might be on the ground in the 3 years of this particular goal setting that we've done.
And I know in the past that we have waived their fees, and that's pretty substantial amount. It's some, I think the last one was like over $1 million. Are we going to be able to help them out in the same manner as any of the funds that we're receiving, or is that the federal restriction so tight that they won't be able to qualify for any of that?
So you're correct in so far as while there may not have been outlays of capital, there have been some waivers of fees. And I don't know if we have ACM Gonzalez on this call or whether that's something Rosie could speak to, but I know it has been discussed. And so I would, if I were you, would expect to hear from us soon on a recommendation on that front.
Yeah, I don't have any details on that, but I'm happy to follow up with Denise and with ACM Gonzalez.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I actually didn't have any questions until Pio asked that question. And so along those lines, I know that I was in communication with Amber and Alan recently, and we were talking about barriers essentially. And they brought up for me a couple things that would help their process move considerably faster. And so I just wonder what we on the city's end can do to help their process go faster. for them and the people they serve. But I mean, as importantly, what is it that we can do on our end when we are making acquisitions, when we are doing the building out of permanent supportive housing? How do we make our process go faster? Do we get in our own way like we do other people's, with our processes, is more or less what I'm trying to assess.
Director Truelove. Question.
I think we probably do get in our own way at times. We do work all the time with our friends and neighbors across the city to help ensure that we have smooth development. I know that our real estate group is even still, we're going through a process of working on process improvements and things like smart housing. I don't know, Mandy, again, I'm going to call on you since I can't see you. I think you're still on the line to see if there's anything from your experiences with our latest AHFC developments that would be helpful to bring up here.
I am still on the line. This is Mandy DeVeo with AHFC. As Rosie mentioned, we are gathering, we've met internally to discuss our affordable housing, smart housing processes. And we are in the process next week, I believe, of sitting down with our external stakeholders to identify some low-hanging fruit from process improvement perspective. And certainly Community First Village would fall into that category. These are the types of developments that we want to incentivize and prioritize across the community. I don't have anything specific, but I think that is something that certainly both Rodney, Luciana Gonzalez, and Director Denise Lucas, that we need to sit down and talk about how we can specifically assist Community First Village in their expansion efforts.
I appreciate that. And what I'll do is just forward you the email. They laid it plain for me in 4 bullet points. And so I'll share that with you, and hopefully you guys, you all can take that up in your meeting. But I mean, as an extension of that, and we certainly don't have to do it today, but as an extension of that, I find myself thinking about, as we are, on the precipice of really having to very quickly produce housing for folks who are currently unhoused and folks who may currently have shelter, but will be, really struggling to find housing soon. The thought I keep having is, what is it that we can put in place now that will take away? I mean, we can't change the cost of lumber, we can't change the market, but there are things that we can do on the city's end. And so just having a really good idea what we can do on our end and what council might need to be able to do to help us produce housing quickly. Any advice that you have in that area, I would happily accept.
And y'all, I think we need to kick on over to the other items if we're going to hit the 1 hour goal. I know that we're getting a further presentation tomorrow, and so I think there might be some remaining questions that we can bring up tomorrow, unless there's anything else urgent. Great. Well, I really appreciate the presentation and the work. The remaining 2 items are to talk about winter storm damage, but before we take that up, my recommendation is that we do take action on the resolution in the backup, which would forward a recommendation from this committee to the full council on May 20th that we update Austin's housing plan that we call our housing blueprint, with the goal of housing 3,000 more people and providing them services in order to drastically reduce homelessness in our community and equitably rehouse people from encampments. So we have that item in backup. If there's a motion to move that forward, I think that would be great, and we can discuss that briefly before we take up the last item. Council member.
I move that we pass there's 2 versions in backup, and so I've got a version that says proposed amendment, and so that's the one I was looking at.
I think that one's been incorporated into the main one in backup. And I think it's just a grammatical difference, where before there were a few comma ands, and I think now it's set into sentences.
Oh, I see. Okay. So I see what you're saying. I didn't realize it had been. Okay. Well, then I move passage of the one that says ASHP goal resolution, which incorporates the content that I had in my amendment.
So moved by Councilmember Kitchen. Is there a second? Seconded by Vice Chair Renteria. Any discussion? Councilmember Kitchen, I'll let you take it first.
Well, I think this is a good step for us to propose to that the council take, because really what it does is it states our commitment to rehousing unsheltered folks at the level that's been recommended. It came out of the summit, the 3,000. I think it's important that we update our goals to reflect that commitment. We have additional steps that we will need to take as a council to work with the community as a whole and identify the total amount of funding to reach that goal. But I think it's absolutely critical that we take this first step to go ahead and make a commitment to reaching those goals, to rehouse folks and to get to the goal of reaching effectively ending homelessness by providing what's needed and necessary for these 3,000 folks to be rehoused.
Thank you, council member. And, you know, I've talked to so many people in the last few months, every single day, people torn about Prop B, people for Prop B, people against Prop B. And what I found in virtually every single conversation, especially when you had some time to talk, was that the vast majority of people were not divided on the issue of pulling folks out of tents and into housing our fellow neighbors that are living under bridges or in creeks. And just for far too long, we have had our goals far too low for housing people experiencing homelessness. The rise in housing costs, the shredding of our social safety net over generations has led to a really, really significant challenge. And I appreciate so much that what was produced out of this summit was for us to finally raise our goals to the level that they should have been at for a long time. So that and I think through this recommendation, we're committing to more bold action as a city, alongside other local government partners, alongside the private sector and philanthropy and nonprofits, for us to drastically reduce homelessness in our city. If we actually get this done, I think there will be a really drastic change that so many people are looking for. So thank you. I saw Councilmember Ellis had her hand up. And then if somebody else hasn't talked, I'll kick it to them. And if not, I'll kick it back to you, Councilmember Kitchen.
Thank you, Chair. I really do appreciate your comments and the comments of Councilmember Kitchen. It's clear through this presentation that Diana Gray has given us that there have been historic commitments to finding the dollars that is needed to house people who are experiencing homelessness. We will have some discussions in the future about how to find the rest of the money. I do hope that everyone ready, able, and willing to partner with us will step up and affirm that commitment. We have a lot of work to do. We care about our unhoused neighbors. But this is a path forward, and I think it's good for our committee to be adopting this strategic housing blueprint goal for our neighbors.
Thank you, Councilmember. Agreed. Everybody needs to chip in for this to work. Vice Chair Renteria, Mayor Pro Tem after that.
Chair, I'm not the vice chair anymore.
I think you are again.
I am. I thought Paige was the vice chair.
Paige was vice chair.
Vice Chair.
I think she kicked it back to you. I've known you for long enough that I feel like that really that describes how you've led on housing issues for a long time. You gave this over to me after you first did it. You gave the vice chair over to Paige. We gave it back to you, and you don't need the title, but I think you were the vice chair.
Okay.
Go. What is that? What you were raising your hand about? Did you want to say something? That was it. Well, we'll check the agenda, but I think that we did change that in 2021. Mayor Pro Tem.
I thank you. I just wanted to make sure to point out that I think it's super important that our goals do actually reflect our needs. You know, 2 years ago when we were establishing our LDC policy, those guidelines, we determined that we need to update our strategic housing blueprint at every level. And so I'm really pleased to see this come forward. I also really look forward to getting back to that conversation around our land development code. I mean, even just, you know, that line of questioning about community first and thinking about what levers we might be able to pull to just make this considerably less challenging. And so, you know, I look forward to revising our land development code so we can implement the changes that'll be necessary to achieve our goals. And I mean, every time we have these conversations about our neighbors experiencing homelessness, it just keeps coming back to housing for me. And so, I wanted to put that out there. I also didn't take the opportunity to do so earlier. For the folks that maybe don't know her, Kendra Garrett is amazing. And her experience in housing, I think, is absolutely going to be a benefit to the community with her service on the Community Development Commission. So I really appreciate that that she's been brought forward as a candidate, or as was selected as a candidate. And I really look forward to the full council being able to take the opportunity to allow her to serve our community.
Councilmember Fuentes.
Yes, just real quick. I know we're running out of time, but I know, and I realize I'm a non-voting member of this committee and I'm just passing through, but I just want to emphasize my support for this blueprint, for the strategy, and for the plan that council will consider in a few weeks for formal adoption. I think it's incredible. And as we discuss how we utilize the American Rescue Plan dollars, not only at the city level, but at the county level, that we come together. It's going to take both of our bodies investing sizably to meet the needs of our community. And I know we can do it. We're an innovative city and we can do it when we put our heads down and get the work done. And so I really look forward to the conversations with Travis County and would love to see their support in this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. And you're always welcome here. And the last item on the agenda, I know, is something you've worked on quite a bit. Right before I kick it over to you, Councilmember Kitchen, are we able to stay until 3:10? In case this last item takes us 10 minutes? Or is there something coming up after us?
I can, but I don't know that we voted. Did we vote?
We haven't voted yet. I just wanted to interject before I forget to ask that question. Okay, are we able? Everybody able to? Okay, we might have to go 10 minutes over. I tried. Okay, Councilmember Kitchen, then back to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Just very quickly, because I know we're trying to move fast. I just want to emphasize that what we're doing today, as I said before, we're making a commitment. But when we're making that commitment and we're thinking in terms of the summit and the recommendations that came out of that, we wanted to emphasize that we're committing to rehousing those folks living in encampments equitably and setting a course towards equilibrium. And I want to define what that means. I mean, that really means equilibrium on unsheltered homelessness is really about having a homelessness response system that has an intervention that within 30 days for all persons experiencing homelessness. So we were talking about, taking to scale what we're doing now with the HEAL initiative and with a whole bunch of other things that we're doing now, taking that to scale and then establishing a system that works equitably so that we have equilibrium, and within 30 days, if someone does end up homeless, they are not homeless for very long and not on the streets for very long. So I wanted to emphasize that. I think it's a very important commitment that we are going to move forward today and ask the rest of council to support.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, did you have your hand up?
I just wanted to sort of see procedurally if I needed to walk away. I don't want my vote to not be counted. I have to pick up the kid in 5 minutes. So what I had planned to do was listen but I won't be able to speak, in which case I'm trying to figure out.
Why don't we go ahead and take the vote right before you go then, unless there's any objection, so that we can all be here. Okay. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. That passes unanimously amongst the members. And Councilmember Fuentes, if you want to raise your hand too, we know that you're very supportive.